The night of the blood moon ceremony arrived with a strange stillness over the Crimson Moon Kingdom. Every path through the forest glowed silver under the swollen moon, and every wolf in the territory, young and old, made their way toward the great stone courtyard, where the Alpha King would choose his mate. Elena Voss walked at the back of the crowd, as she always did. She was used to being unseen. Her family had never expected much from her. She was the younger daughter, the quiet one, the girl whispered about for being too soft, too plain, too ordinary to matter. Her older sister, Serafina, was the opposite in every way. Serafina walked like she already owned the world, her chin lifted, her dark hair falling in perfect waves, her eyes bright with certainty. Everyone said the crown would be hers. Even Elena believed it. The Voss sisters had grown up under very different shadows. Serafina had been praised since childhood for her beauty and her strength as a fighter. Elena had been told, gently but constantly, that she would never be anything remarkable. She was an omega, weak in the ways that mattered to their pack, unable to shift with the speed or power that impressed the elders. She had learned to make herself small, to speak softly, to want little, because wanting more only led to disappointment. Tonight, though, despite everything, a small flicker of hope had lit itself in her chest. The elders said the blood moon ceremony revealed true mates, chosen not by rank or beauty, but by fate itself. Perhaps, just once, fate might surprise everyone. The courtyard was filled with hundreds of she-wolves, all dressed in shades of white and silver, all trembling with the same private hope. At the center of it all stood Alpha King Draven Ashford, tall and solemn, his eyes the color of storm clouds. He was said to be a fair ruler, though a hard one, carrying the weight of his kingdom with a seriousness that rarely allowed for softness. Tonight, he wore black, the only color that stood apart from the sea of pale gowns before him. When the ceremony began, the crowd fell silent. Draven walked slowly along the front line of hopeful wolves, his expression unreadable. Elena watched from several rows back, her heart pounding despite herself. She told herself not to hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope had failed her before. Then it happened. Draven stopped in front of Serafina. The crowd gasped as his eyes locked onto her, and something in his face shifted, as though a decision had been made without his full understanding of it. He reached for her hand, and the ancient words of claiming rose from his mouth, declaring her his mate before the entire kingdom. The courtyard erupted in cheers. Serafina's face bloomed with triumphant joy. Their parents wept with pride. Everyone reached to touch her, to congratulate her, to bask in the glow of her sudden fortune. Elena stood frozen at the back, watching the celebration swirl around her sister like golden light. She smiled, because that was what she was supposed to do, and she clapped, because it was expected. But something inside her had cracked, quiet and sharp, like a hairline fracture spreading through glass. She did not understand why the pain in her chest felt so much larger than simple disappointment. It felt like loss. It felt like her body was grieving something she had never even had. She slipped away from the crowd before anyone could notice her tears. She moved through the trees at the edge of the courtyard, deeper into the forest, until the sounds of celebration faded into the rustle of leaves and the distant call of night birds. Her wolf, usually quiet and obedient, was pacing beneath her skin, restless and aching, as though something vital had been ripped away. She stopped beside a small stream, silver under the moonlight, and let herself finally break down. She did not know why she was crying so hard for a man who had never been hers, who had never even looked her way. It made no sense. She pressed her hand against her chest, trying to understand the strange, hollow burning there, and whispered into the empty night. Why does this hurt so much? He was never mine to lose. The forest around her seemed to grow quiet, as if listening. The wind stilled, the stream's gentle sound faded into silence. Elena lifted her head, feeling the hair rise on the back of her neck. A soft light began to gather a few feet away, gentle and silver, growing brighter, until it took the shape of a woman. She was tall and graceful, her gown flowing like moonlight itself, her eyes deep and ancient and kind. Elena scrambled backward, breath catching. Who are you? I am Lyra, the woman said, her voice like a hushed lullaby. Some call me the moon goddess. I have watched over this land, And its bonds, since before your ancestors first learned to walk beneath 2 moons instead of 1. Elena's mouth went dry. She had heard stories of Lyra since she was a child, tales told by elders to frighten pups into good behavior, but she had never truly believed the goddess was real, let alone that she might appear before someone as unremarkable as herself. "Why are you here?" Elena whispered. "I'm no one. I'm not even at the ceremony anymore. My sister was chosen. There's nothing left for you to see." Lyra's expression softened with something like sorrow. "That is where you are wrong, child. There is a truth buried deep in this kingdom, one that its rulers have hidden, whether by ignorance or by fear, for many generations. Tonight, that truth can no longer stay silent." Elena shook her head, confused. "I don't understand." "The blood moon ceremony was never meant to be judged by sight," Lyra explained gently. "It was never meant to crown the most beautiful wolf, or the strongest, or the one born into the finest bloodline. Its magic was designed to answer a far deeper question. It was meant to reveal the bond between 2 souls, not 2 faces." "Then why did he choose my sister?" Elena asked, her voice breaking. Lyra's eyes darkened with old sorrow. "Because a curse was placed upon the Ashford bloodline many generations ago, by a wolf who was wronged by a king long dead. That curse clouds the eyes of every alpha in this line during the ceremony, drawing his gaze toward whichever wolf shines brightest to the crowd, rather than the one whose soul truly calls to his own. It has worked exactly as it was designed to work for hundreds of years. Tonight, though, something is different." Elena's hands trembled in her lap. "Different how?" Lyra knelt before her, and though she was a goddess, her presence felt warm rather than frightening. "Because you called out to me, child, in true and honest pain, without pride, without demand, only sorrow and confusion. That kind of cry reaches me in ways that celebration never can. Elena Voss, you are the one the bond was always meant to find. You are Draven Ashford's true mate." Elena stared at her, certain she had misheard. "That's impossible. I'm nothing special. I've never been strong, or clever, or beautiful the way Serafina is. The elders have said my whole life that I would never be chosen for anything important." "The elders were wrong," Lyra said simply. "Strength is not only found in claws and speed. Yours has always lived quietly, in patience, in kindness, in the way you have carried disappointment again and again without letting it turn you bitter. That too is a kind of power, one this kingdom has forgotten how to see." She reached forward and gently lifted Elena's wrist. Beneath her fingers, a faint mark began to glow, silver and delicate, shaped like a crescent moon wrapped around a small star. Elena stared at it in disbelief. She had never seen this mark before in her life. "This has always been there," Lyra said, "hidden by the curse, waiting for truth to call it forward. It is the mark of a true bond, Elena. It has been sleeping beneath your skin since the day you were born." Tears slipped down Elena's face, but they felt different now, no longer the tears of grief, but something closer to disbelief, mixed with fragile, trembling hope. "What happens now?" "Now," Lyra said, rising to her full height, "the truth returns to where it belongs." She lifted her hand, and silver light spread outward from her palm like ripples across still water, moving through the trees, back toward the courtyard where the celebration still continued. At that very moment, Draven Ashford, standing beside Serafina as she accepted congratulations from the crowd, suddenly staggered. He pressed a hand to his chest, his breath catching as though something inside him had been struck. The warm, celebratory haze that had wrapped around his mind, since he'd spoken the claiming words, shattered all at once, like glass falling away from a window. He looked at Serafina beside him, and for the first time all evening, he truly saw her, without the strange pull that had guided his choice. There was nothing wrong with her. She was lovely, and confident, and every bit the wolf the kingdom had expected him to choose. But there was no bond between them, no pull, no warmth, only the quiet, empty absence of something that should have been there and wasn't. "Something is wrong," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. Serafina's smile faltered. "What do you mean? You chose me. Everyone saw it." But Draven was no longer listening. A new sensation had taken hold of him, faint at first, then growing steadily stronger, pulling him like an invisible thread tied around his heart. It tugged him away from the courtyard, toward the dark line of trees at its edge, toward the forest beyond. "I have to go," he said, already turning away. "Draven," Seraphina called after him, but he was already moving, first walking, then running, his wolf rising eagerly beneath his skin, desperate to follow the pull that had suddenly, inexplicably, taken hold of him. He crossed through the trees just as the silver light from Lyra's blessing faded into the night air. He found Elena still kneeling by the stream, moonlight caught in her damp eyes, the crescent and star mark glowing softly on her wrist. The moment his eyes met hers, the pull inside his chest roared to life, warm and undeniable, and he understood, with a certainty that shook him to his core, exactly what he was feeling. "It's you," he whispered, stepping closer as though in a dream. "It was always you." Elena rose slowly to her feet, hardly daring to believe what was happening. "I don't understand any of this. An hour ago, you didn't even know my name." "I know," he said, guilt heavy in his voice. "I'm sorry. I didn't understand until now. There's a curse, on my bloodline. It's blinded every alpha before me during the ceremony. I was never truly choosing. I was being led astray, toward the wrong wolf, again and again, generation after generation." As he spoke, his own mark, hidden along his forearm, began to glow to match hers, a matching crescent moon and star, shining silver in the darkness of the forest. Before either of them could say more, footsteps crashed through the trees behind them. Seraphina burst into the clearing, breathless and furious, with several pack elders close behind her, drawn by the strange light that had spread across the sky. "What is this?" Seraphina demanded, staring at the glowing marks on both Draven's arm and Elena's wrist. "This is some kind of trick. Elena has always been jealous of me. She must have done something." "I did nothing," Elena said quietly, though her voice trembled. "I don't understand it either." Above them, the sky itself seemed to answer. Silver light spilled downward like falling stars, gathering into the shimmering shape of Lyra once more, visible now, not only to Elena, but to everyone gathered in the clearing. Gasps rippled through the small crowd as the elders dropped to their knees before the goddess. "The bond you witnessed tonight," Lyra said, her voice carrying clearly across the clearing, "was never real. It was the product of an old curse, one that has shaped this kingdom's choices for far too long. Tonight, that curse has been broken. Elena Voss is the true mate of Alpha King Draven Ashford, chosen not by the false pull of old magic, but by the truth of her own soul." Seraphina stared, speechless, her fury giving way to disbelief, as the reality of what she was witnessing settled over her. The elders bowed their heads, murmuring apologies for generations of blindness they had never questioned. Lyra turned her gentle gaze toward Elena one final time. "You have spent your whole life believing you were ordinary, unworthy of notice. Let tonight be the end of that belief. You were never overlooked because you lacked worth. You were hidden because your worth had not yet been allowed to shine." With those words, the goddess's light faded gently into the night sky, leaving behind a stillness that felt entirely different from the tense silence before. Draven turned to Elena, taking her hand in his, the glowing marks on their skin now calm and steady, no longer flaring but simply present, like a quiet promise finally kept. "I know this is sudden," he said softly. "I know you have no reason yet to trust any of this, or me. But I intend to earn that trust, every single day, for as long as you'll allow me to try." Elena looked up at him, feeling, for the first time in her life, truly seen, not as the quiet sister, not as the disappointing daughter, not as the Omega no one expected anything from, but simply as herself. "I think," she said slowly, a small, honest smile breaking through her tears, "I would like that very much." Behind them, the pack that had once overlooked her began to bow, one by one, no longer seeing a forgotten girl from a lesser family, but the Luna the goddess herself had chosen. And as the moon shone down over the clearing, Elena finally understood a truth she had never dared to believe before that night. Worth was never something that had to be earned through beauty or strength or the approval of others. It had been inside her all along, patiently waiting for the truth to finally set it free.